What is going on, everyone? We are back yet again with another State of the Franchise episode. I am Brad Graham. That's Jason Aponte. How are you doing today, Jason?
That was fire, right on the first point too, as well.
I
I'm
know.
doing great, Brad.
I've been screwing up the points too.
Yeah, it's really hard to figure out. It's way harder than you guys think it is watching out there. But I'm doing good, Brad. It's always good to see you. It's a Wednesday as usual. We're keeping the State of the Franchise rolling, and as always, there's no shortage of things to talk about in 49ers land, even if there's a shortage of actual football to talk about.
It just feels like we know what we're going to be talking about all the way through to training camp. So why not? Let's get in. Let's indulge. We've done our best as best we could up until this point to be, even with the talking points, what we're talking about, not to be too overloaded and things like that. But it is time. This time, though, let's start from the Trey Lance angle. Everything that we are hearing in the 49ers universe, whether it's national media, reporters, whatever. What's just your overall take on the overview of conversation surrounding Trey Lance?
Just regurgitating and repetitive, and a lot of talking points from last training camp that have very little to do with the player that is about to be evaluated going into this training camp. I sent out a tweet today, kind of got a little riled up. I'm not as spicy right now. Maybe that helped me get it out, but it was more about every single report about Trey Lance starts with people I'm speaking to. Well, let's just break that down. Who are you speaking to if this coaching staff has largely been turned over aside from the head coach? Let me explain. New quarterback coach, offensive coordinator moves on to be the Miami Dolphins head coach, new running back coach. Are you speaking to people that have not been able to even get to work with Trey Lance? Or are you speaking with people that are not in the building because, pardon my language, are shitty at their job? And that's why they don't have a job anymore. Not all of them. Bobby Turner's not here clearly because of a health issue. That's not because he's not good at it. He's damn good at his job.
Very good.
But offensive coordinator moves on. Mike McDaniel is not going to say anything crazy about Trey Lance. No. So now that we're doing process of elimination, who does that leave to be the culprit to be speaking poorly about Trey Lance? Well, my detective skills put it as Rich Mid Scangarello. Who clearly has an issue with Trey Lance and clearly wanted Mac Jones. All you have to do is nail down the one or two podcast appearances that he's done this year as he turns into the offensive coordinator for the Kentucky Wildcats. Good luck over there as well, because the quarterback that they have there resembles a one Trey Lance. But I bet you didn't do research on that either, because you're not really good at your job, buddy. And the reason that I say that is this. Not one quarterback has made any sort of jump under Rich Scangarello. Many would argue that Jimmy Garoppolo regressed. And Rich Scangarello was supposed to come back this year and help him. And Jimmy didn't leap at all. Jimmy was Jimmy. So if you want to take that as a good or a bad, I take it as coaches are here to help you make leaps, not stay the same or regress. So it's clear. We're narrowing it down. It's not Kyle Shanahan saying these things to anybody. By the way, many of these people that are reporting cover the Eagles, cover the Cowboys. We should just start throwing things out about the Eagles and the Cowboys that we don't know, because we're not there either.
Let's start dropping rumors about Jalen Hurts. Let's just start dropping Jalen Hurts nuggets out there.
Rumors are that they're not happy with Jalen Hurts' progressions at this point.
AJ Brown has already requested a trade from the Eagles because of Jalen Hurts.
And the connection between AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts just isn't materializing the way that they thought it would. There you go. Boom. That's how you.
Boom.
But
we got it.
Is Scangarello saying it? He's not good at his job, and all the things that are being said are from the previous training camp. And the reason that I know is there's been nothing to talk about now in terms of his development. So there's my little spiel on it. I'm tired of it because, one, these people know exactly how to draw clicks to themselves because they know how to shake up the hornet's nest that is 49ers Twitter. It's got me yelling into my camera. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, it's clearly working. And how do you do that? You even hint at the idea that Trey Lance isn't ready or that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be here going into training camp. Yes, did I fall for it? For sure.
Yes.
But damn it, I need to call this out about people saying things that make no sense, because there is no one around speaking about Trey Lance, because anyone who saw Trey Lance last year, aside from coach, is gone. Go ahead, Brad. I'm sorry.
No, you're spitting right now, but it is something that again is continuously talked about. I did a particular episode on my channel where we did listen to Rich Scangarello and listen to his talking points on what his what did he call it, like unquestionable traits that you have to be able to be a successful quarterback in the league. Well, it's fascinating to hear an evaluator of quarterback talent go through a list and talk about all the things that he holds in the highest regard that translates most to success with NFL quarterbacks. We like to scout in the offseason, Jason. We like, scouting combine, whether it's Senior Bowl, we're there up close and personal because we truly enjoy evaluating talent. So we go through this process not as just like trying to talk about it. We try to watch and functionally understand what's going on. So when we reference the way we've scouted Trey Lance before he was a 49er, then scouted him once he was a 49er, and then you go back and you listen to Rich Scangarello talk about the traits that you have to have. Trey Lance was honestly, objectively, didn't really fit into that category that Scangarello was painting, this box of what it takes to be this type of quarterback in the NFL. And it's just like, it's interesting to hear in a pre-draft pod leading up to the draft, he doesn't mention Trey Lance. And then the things that he does mention that you need to have, Trey Lance, we knew was a work in like he was a project in a sense, coming from North Dakota State, no start in 2020 other than one game. The games that he did play, they were well ahead in a lot of them. When I look at North Dakota State, I look at them as basically like the Alabama of the FCS, and they just dominated and steamrolled their opponents. Scangarello's talking about, well, you need a guy who can show that he's been able to come back and, execute the 2-minute drill, play from behind, and do those things from adversity. And if you really go back and you look, there aren't a ton of examples where Trey Lance had to do this. So we can connect the dots and we'd be like, what are you really talking about, Rich? Are you talking about Trey? Are you countering what Trey is? And so I hear what you're saying, right? Because it does kind of feel like Rich might be that guy.
And here's the funny thing. It's maybe this is just because I've just been on a, like going at Rich Scangarello, because I never really thought much of his job or what the job that he's done. But I feel like him pointing out all of those things, having it and working on it, I don't feel are mutually exclusive. Isn't a coach's job supposed to make you work on it? Now, when you start to definitively say, well, he doesn't have these skills, it sounds like you're giving yourself an out because you're not good at your job. You can just say, well, he doesn't have
Rich said, quote, there are some players that are multi-year starters and don't have a 2-minute situation drill that matters in their entire career. And it's like, that's situational. Like, you can't fault a player just because their team was so good that they just steamrolled people. It doesn't mean he can't do it, but right kind of feels like a pigeonhole almost.
Right. It feels like either you have it or you don't. It's God-given or I can't teach you. Okay, so why are you here, bro? What do you do at this point? You didn't help Jimmy Garoppolo with his mechanics. I would say the only quarterback that actually took any sort of strides under you was Big Daddy Sudfeld. And that's not what you want to hear, right? So that's my thing, is having it and being able to be coached for it. It sounds like Scangarello's throwing all this out there to say, well, he never had it, that's why he's not going to develop it or anything like that. No, it's because you're a mid-ass coach and you can't help him. And you're giving yourself excuses and you're giving yourself a groundwork to say, see, I told you he's not going to be that good, but you never worked on it or could get it out of him because you're not that good. And that's the point. You leave those breadcrumbs behind because you're not good at your job. And when you lose the job, because you were against the pick, you can always point to that and say, well, he just didn't have it. You're just not good at your job, bro. And if anybody says they're talking to anybody, they're not talking to players, because here's another thing. When anybody ever says good about Trey Lance, he's still not ready. Who cares? Fred Warner, he's dicing us up in practice, man. It's really hard for us. Who cares? Somebody comes out, Jimmy Garoppolo is a great leader. See, they know about Jimmy and you don't. But when somebody says something nice about Trey, you don't use that same logic. So it's really weird, all of this stuff that's going on right now. Some of it's for clicks, but it's the root of it is this guy who is not good at his job, didn't want Trey, and continues to be the person that people are speaking to, who I've spoken to. Every single report. The newest one is from the guy who used to play football and he covers the Eagles. From who I've spoken to. Rich Scangarello's who you spoke to, bro. Just say his name. Nobody cares. He's never getting a job in the NFL again because he's not good. Let's look at his other track record. Whatever. This is it. I'm going to get up off him, but he's mid. Denver, offensive coordinator, right? 1 year?
Yep.
Gone.
Teddy Bridgewater?
Philly? Yep. Philly? Offensive coordinator or quarterback coach? Gone. Not good at your job and always making excuses for why you basically pouted and cried because the 49ers didn't take Mac Jones at 3. That's it. That's my spiel on mid-ass Gangarello.
He's mid is going to be the quote of the episode today. We got Corey saying, not speaking to anyone, they're full of ish. So I think Corey's speaking to the names that must not be mentioned. But Gammon, I see your super chat. I will get to that in a second. Just wanted to let you know that I saw it, but I will get to it here in a second. What is your overall take on just the phrasing that is at this point? I think it's not even figurative. It's almost literal. It's being beat into our skulls that Trey Lance, the buzz phrase, he isn't ready. Trey Lance is not ready, and it's being positioned, almost weaponized in a sense, to be a negative against him. 22 years old, was a young Jason Aponte ready to take over the world and put an entire multi-billion-dollar franchise on his shoulders and lead them to excellence? I can speak for myself. A 22-year-old Ginger Brad Graham, absolutely not even close. But what say you?
A 22-year-old Jason Aponte is a person that I would not want any of you to meet, and I am very ashamed of in terms of things. Couldn't grow a beard, couldn't grow a goatee, wore much
beard
too,
wasn't even close for me.
Clothing was much too big, didn't really have aspirations. I can keep it a buck with myself. If I could write myself a letter to my younger self and I open it up, get up and go do something is what it would just be there in big red letters. So yeah, I know Jason Aponte at 22 would not be, but I think when you're talking about the phrasing, it's literally like every single analyst is reading from a script, the same exact thing. From people I've spoken to, they are a little nervous about the way he can digest the playbook and his accuracy downfield, which is complete horse manure. Accuracy and strength, arm strength. It's just like now you're telling on yourself, because what about Trey Lance's arm you have issues about is literally telling on yourself. But this is why it starts to feel like it's coming from the same place, the same person, because it's the same thing. This guy says it, this guy says it, this guy says it, but they all start with, from what I've been told and who I've been speaking to, the playbook, they have concerns, and that's why Jimmy's still here. None of that implies anybody speaking to anybody different or anyone who actually is dialed into the situation. It's so funny for so many fans to get freaked out in one thing, in one way, saying, in one breath of the fans is the 49ers don't leak. And then all of these things come out about Trey, and everybody's like, oh my God, I need to be concerned. Well, which is it? Do they not leak? Or are you going to believe what people are telling people? Again, this all sounds like a bunch of contrived narratives. And again, these media people know exactly how to shake the hornet's nest of 49ers Twitter, because let's just be frank, we overreact to nearly everything. And that is no disrespect to anybody. But when people talk bad about the 49ers, players, the fan base reacts harshly. Now, when you're starting to talk about this quarterback that so many people are excited about, once the media got a taste of what it looked like to get clicks with the Mac at 3 stuff, light bulb went off in their head. That's it. All we're going to focus in on is Trey Lance isn't ready. Jimmy's still here. And we are going to draw clicks to ourselves that way. Blame Mike Florio. Blame Chris Sims. Blame Adam Schefter. Blame every single person that perpetuated that Mac Jones at 3 stuff because of the amount of traffic that they garnered from it. And now it is converted from that to now, I don't know if Trey Lance is ready. And there was one person who went out and on the radio, and I felt said the absolute literal best thing about the Trey Lance is ready stuff. Steve Young went on Rich Eisen. And that was so refreshing to hear because he literally parroted things that you and I have said. How do you know if the kid's ready? He's not ready right now because it's May 18th. You don't need to be ready. There's no football games this weekend. But how do you get ready? Play the kid. And the word ready is packed. When he said that, I said, thank you so much for the logic, Steve Young. If you don't believe us, listen to Steve Young, who knows a hell of a lot more about being a 49ers quarterback than any of us will. And that interview gave me a ton of confidence because it's so true. How do you know if the kid's ready? You have to let him play. Is he ready now? Who cares? It's May 18th. There's no game on Sunday. He doesn't have to be ready now. That's the beauty of the offseason. The guy can grow. And that's the best part. I thought Steve Young was the voice of reason. That's the one guy that I listened to that actually made sense and said things that were logical. Everyone else is just throwing shit at the wall. Sorry, I don't want to keep cursing.
No, absolutely. You're 100% right. Steve Young, I feel like, has been the voice of reason for the 49ers quarterback situation dating back to last year, dating back to, are they going to keep Jimmy Garoppolo? Are they going to, with Trey Lance? Who's going to start? What's the competition going to be like? What's it going to be like when they get into the season? What's the narrative's going to be? He's been calling it out every step of the way. And his logic, again, much smarter than you and I. Again, he's a Hall of Famer. He's within the franchise. He is a media member, so he gets access to people, not only just with his 49er connections, but he can go talk to whoever he wants.
And he's been through a situation very similar like this. He
can pull from, exactly. Great point. He can pull from experience of being the Trey Lance of that particular situation, the guy waiting in the wings behind the franchise quarterback, and then that transition, again, the famous monkey on the back situation was the reference to being the backup behind a guy like Joe Montana and the way that all worked. So he is a great point of reference when it comes to this situation. So I implore anyone, if you really want to distill through all the noise, just listen to Steve Young. Whenever he speaks about this quarterback situation, he's typically on point. And it's not like he came on too and just overly just complimenting and flowers of Trey Lance. He proportionally placed where he doesn't see concerns and where he might have some concerns, which are all valid. So really quickly, Arturo says Scancarello just got cooked by my boy Spicy Aponte.
I'm on his head. Lies. He ain't around here anymore, so I don't have to worry about, the team being upset that I'm obliterating him. He ain't here no more, man. Enjoy yourself in Kentucky and enjoy that quarterback that resembles much more Trey Lance than Mac Jones. Smooth move researching that one.
And then Cap says, anyone else loving how low-key Trey Lance's offseason has been? That boy's been plotting. Hey, move in silence. You know the vibes. But what I did want to get to regarding the Steve Young situation, because you hit it on the head earlier in what he said. And we've both had this discussion. What does ready mean? How are you quantifying? It's your context and your perception of what ready means. Is what ready means being a top 10 quarterback? Because guess what? there's not a lot of those. And even if you are drafted high, go back to your Jake Lockers, go back to whoever you want to point to who has struggled. It is not an exact science. The number 3 overall pick just automatically walks into the league and becomes a top 10 quarterback. There's a lot of progression and maturation, and environment matters. And we can look at the environment of the San Francisco 49ers and be like, wow, he's in a good spot. They got great depth on defense and studs everywhere. Special teams been bolstered. They have weapons around him. And they have Kyle Shanahan, who has shown in the past. Look at Robert Griffin III. Look at Matt Schaub. Look at the list goes on and on about
Nick
how
Mullins.
he's been able. Nick Mullins. Jimmy Garoppolo took the 49ers this close away from a Super Bowl victory and almost to a Super Bowl appearance last year. And we know how the fan base quantifies Jimmy Garoppolo, at least a portion of them. So he's still in a good spot. But back to like what Steve Young's talking about regarding the ready, he's not ready thing. It's okay that Trey Lance isn't ready. In fact, why would he be ready? Like, it feels like we have to change what that word means, or the phrasing, because I don't think Trey's ready. I don't think Trey thinks he's ready. Just like we all have to do sometimes, we have to learn on the job. We have to get out there. We got to do it. We got to take those bumps and bruises and grow from it. That's part of the development of football, the development of the maturation process, especially for a guy who's 22 years old and has had 2 starts since 2020, which was a full calendar year before the last time he started. So what is your thoughts on that kind of overarching theme?
The thing is that I feel like a lot of the recent quarterbacks that have actually sat behind people have kind of skewed people's expectations. And for all of the other reasons that you mentioned in terms of weapons, coaching, this team, and how close they came last year, that the expectations have been raised a little bit. Everyone seems to have in their head, because Patrick Mahomes sat 1 year behind Alex Smith, that all of a sudden anybody who sits for a year with a great coach, great weapons, and a great team automatically has to come in and light the world up on fire. And I would tell you to chill out on that. Even Aaron Rodgers, when he first started, he wasn't Aaron Rodgers immediately. He wasn't terrible. He was still, he still sat for 3 years,
Right.
but he still wasn't that guy right off the bat. You could see it though. And that's, again, what I go back to. What is a successful season under Trey Lance? After these 17 games are up, and then whatever the playoff run is, if it gets to that, if I can point to the fact that I feel good about where he's going, then I feel everybody should be happy about that, less than the record. And the perfect example is Josh Allen. And stop comparing Trey Lance to Josh Allen, because if you think that he's going to be Josh Allen, if Trey Lance is 65% of Josh Allen, 65%, this team's going to win a Super Bowl.
Well, there's also levels to Josh Allen. We're not talking Josh Allen, MVP, Super Bowl potential front runner.
AFC, or against the Chiefs AFC game, like the best game he's ever played in his life, right? Like,
go back to rookie Josh Allen. That's more where I'm drawing comparison from, because the maturation process.
Now think about this. Speaking of inaccurate, Josh Allen was throwing that thing into the stands over people that were just 10 yards in front of him. Right?
He didn't have control of his accuracy.
Right. What if the Buffalo Bills said, you know what, man, let's pull a plug on this. They stuck through it. They worked with him. And now look. Now who's got the last laugh? So there's examples of someone coming in and struggling and reaching that potential, and somebody who played at a smaller school like Josh Allen. But then everybody kind of has in their mind that this Patrick Mahomes thing that happened is the exception. I mean, is the rule and not the exception. That's not typically what happens. And I will remind people this. When Patrick Mahomes actually became the starter, he struggled in camp. There were reports of interceptions in training camp, and is the kid ready?
Tyreek Hill thought it was a joke that they took him in the first round because the man couldn't read a defense to save his life. He'd never been asked to do it before.
And remember, I mean, even right now, Patrick Mahomes' mechanics aren't great at all. But he doesn't. It doesn't matter.
He's a gunslinger
Some guys,
because he can.
that's
just
it though.
Do it.
So again, traditional standards, prototypical stereotypes, whatever it is you want to call it about quarterbacks, all of those things, all of these things combined have come to a head because of the team that Trey Lance is walking into. The team that was this close to going to the Super Bowl, and many fans have this expectation that if he doesn't make a playoff run, then they turned it over to the wrong guy. I implore you to slow that down and please evaluate this man properly as the guy who is going to be playing his first extended football in years and his first extended football in this league. So it's really, really hard to put a gauge on what you should be expecting from Trey Lance. Expect bumps, expect bruises, expect valleys, expect peaks. But at the same time, evaluate him through the proper lens at this point. And it's gotten to a point where the expectations, I saw someone on Twitter say, I expect him to throw for 4,500. And Josh Allen threw for 4,200 last year, and it was his best season in the league. You expect him to come into the league right away and throw for 4,500? Come on, guys. Come on. Slow down. Slow down. Let the kid get it there, and if he gets to that, fine. But that's not fair. Nobody's throwing for 4,500 unless the guy is coming into his first year. Slow down. Start to contextualize those stats. Again, Josh Allen had his best year in the league last year. But 4,200 yards in his best year. Slow down. Stop putting these unfair expectations on him. And I think that's a little bit where it's coming from too.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to everyone to send in the super chats. I'm trying to feed them in here as organically as I can. And Cove Nation says, Trey had success against Houston. Shanahan will build the offense around his strength, just like he did with Jimmy and Matt Ryan.
And everyone else. And that's the other thing that people are forgetting. Again, I had Grant on the show on Monday. So, Brad, you're a head coach, right? And
yes, of course.
I'm a wide receiver, right? I don't have top end speed, right? And I have trouble separating at times. Are you going to have me on one-on-ones run straight nines and try to let me win that way? Or are you going to try to play to my strengths? Say, you know what? Let's get this guy some rub routes. Let's work him on some slants underneath. Let's throw him some tunnel screens. If Jimmy Garoppolo can't throw the ball down the field, does Kyle Shanahan say, hey, man, let's throw this thing down the field, man. Let's go. Let's just keep chucking it up there. Let's just keep. Why wouldn't Kyle Shanahan play to his strengths and get him? There's something that we around here call Jimmy Gimmies. Why wouldn't he be able to give him the same sort of things going forward? Like, why would Kyle know, who knows him better than any of us, know his strengths and weaknesses at a certain point and not play to those strengths? It's another part that I feel like the media is missing. What makes you think that he automatically just says, all right, Trey, first year, get out there. I want you to pre-snap diagnose everything, go through 4 reads, no cutting the field in half. And he had Jimmy Garoppolo, who's an 8-year veteran, have reads where pre-snap, 2 on each side, you pick a side and cut that other side off. You're going to take that away from Trey Lance? No. Relax with all that, media people. Why wouldn't the coach play to the man's strengths? It's just, again, when you logically think about what people are saying about Trey Lance, none of it makes sense. And that's why we shouldn't be worried. But here we are, or here I am, yelling at the camera like a nut job.
I freaking love it. I actually really, really like this point here by Corey. He says, in a league where return on investment is expected immediately, Allen's maturation wasn't only proof that development is possible and tangible. It's downright an act of anarchy. I love that. So
look, Corey, you're killing it right now. And another thing that has kind of changed the way quarterbacks get evaluated is the Josh Rosen situation. Now, when you draft the quarterback, you automatically, I remember this because I'm old enough and I'm dating myself. And when you drafted a quarterback, they didn't start right away. Not even if they were the number 1 pick ever. Like, you didn't just take the number 1 pick and throw him out there. That sort of started to happen later on. But when the Arizona Cardinals took Josh Rosen and played him, and then the next year drafted Kyler Murray and dumped him, it put everyone on notice that no matter what your draft capital is, if there's someone better the next year, we're going to move on from you. And it changed the game, in my opinion. That's why there's whispers about Tua. That's why there's whispers about other quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield was the number 1 pick. He's not going to have a job this year with the Cleveland Browns. And
Definitely not
that's
the
just
Browns.
how, right. That's just the nature of the way things are happening. So this is a great point by Corey. I still point to that Josh Rosen situation as now there is no longer that, hey, we're going to sit you for a year. We want to see what you got in a year or two, and 2 or 3 years down the line, we'll make an evaluation. No. You get out there right away. And if we're not impressed and we have another high pick and there's another guy there, we're moving on from you, buddy. And that is not the norm. And it started there, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's a great point because when we look at the way front offices move, they try to move in a way where they're not omitting that they've made a mistake. They're going to kind of see it out, try to give the guy every chance he can to be able to prove that he was worthy of the selection that he was taken at. So the Arizona Cardinals, exactly like you said, they took a big swing on admitting that Josh Roshan was a mistake and going to
Hot tub
Kyler
Josh.
Murray. Hot tub Josh. And they made they ripped the band-aid off. They said, you know what? We got to do it. And we got to move forward as such. We've talked about the way Bill Belichick handled Cam Newton and Mac Jones. They just ripped the band-aid off and just made the definitive decision rather than kind of toying around in this unknown world. And to Corey's point, the fact that Allen was able to get that belief around him to build, not after 1 year, but 2 years, 3 years down the road, you're seeing the fruits of that labor. And it's not the norm of the NFL. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Like 3 years in the NFL, like before was a long time. In today's NFL, it feels like you get 1 year, 1 year to prove it. If you can't do it in 1 year, good luck, brother. You're going to be on another team. Like, it really doesn't it feel like that? Doesn't it feel like you got basically one shot depending on what essentially organization you land on?
Exactly. And I was just about to say it's franchise to franchise. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have every single shot, especially now that they have Doug Marrone in there right now, right? I think that Zach Wilson is going to have every single shot because the Jets desperately need that to work. I feel like the guy that's on the clock right now, and this is the worst thing that I'm going to say, the guy that's on the clock right now to do something, and then the whispers will get very loud. And unfortunately, he's in the worst situation probably out of all of them, is Justin Fields. And if Justin Fields doesn't start to make those strides, it's only going to get louder. And the problem is his situation is there. And sure, he didn't play well last year at certain points, but he's the one that I feel like is on the clock more than anything. And that's a shame because, you know, that's our Prince.
Absolutely. Would love to see him in a successful situation, but we'll see how it turns out with Daryl Mooney, little bit of Pringle and the Cat Man as his top wide receivers.
It's Darnell Mooney and then a lineup like, you know, in the police, it's a police lineup of wide receiver fours. It's Byron Pringle, it's Equinemius St. Brown, it's Dante Pettis. It's like literally they said, hey, Darnell Mooney's our wide receiver 1. Let's sign every single wide receiver 4. And that's how we're going to build out this roster. It's baffling what the Bears did.
And wide receiver 4 is kind of being generous as well. It's a nice.
Yeah, I know. Dante Pettis is soup. He's like 4. He's like, let's go.
Oh, Arturo is going to bring us back to the Steve Young interview. He said, I found one thing interesting about that interview was what he said about Deebo and the whispers. Do you know what Arturo is speaking of?
I was going to ask you, and I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's talking about the whispers that Deebo feels like he's not going to be utilized the same way in a Trey Lance offense as opposed to Jimmy Garoppolo. And if that's not true, I mean, I'll have a statement on that right now. I mean, that's more about the limitations of one quarterback and the other. Like, for once, you're going to have a quarterback who is going to throw to other people instead of them saying, please just get this man the ball in the tunnel screen and just let him work. Like, I mean, they'll have those for Trey, but Trey's going to throw the ball to Ayuk. He's built up more rapport. Trey's going to throw the ball down the seam to George Kittle, right? And like, the other thing is Jimmy will look down a wide open receiver screaming down the seam. And what it'll do, pat that thing, and then, oh, there's Juszczyk. Like, Trey's going to let that thing rip. Now, if he overthrows him or if a defender, he's going to let it rip. And that's what I think Deebo's concerns are, or the whispers around it is for sure Deebo's going to become, he's still the focal point of the offense, but he's not going to be as relied on because Trey will give the ball to other people. and he's going to look at other people. And when people are open down the field, he's actually going to chuck that thing because he can.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're 100% right. When you look at it from that particular angle, you go back to the Houston game when they kind of started to open up the offense a little bit, where Trey felt you could see Trey was night and day from the first half to the second half, and the way the offense was operating from the first half to the second half, it just felt like a completely different offense. And when he was able to kind of get that freedom to work within the scheme, you started to see him make plays within the scheme. You saw him start going downfield to Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk was probably loving his life, because how often does he get those targets down the field, deep outs to the sideline? Like rare, just absolute rarities with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right, and the other thing is, my favorite throw of Trey Lance is in that game. It's the check down to George Kittle that he bypasses, gives a little shoulder shake, gets the defender in the air, and he throws it off platform to Sherfield for a first down or something that's not in Jimmy Garoppolo's bag. But someone pointed out that they felt the best throw of his career was an incompletion in that game, which was Brandon Ayuk was stride for stride with a cornerback. He throws it into the corner of the end zone, perfect ball. But his arm is held, and Ayuk can't get his arm up. Jimmy Garoppolo is not throwing that ball there. So, again, you're going to see throws that you've not seen in this offense. Whether it goes good or bad is going to be dependent on the matchup and where the throw is and things like that. But that's the part that people are, I guess Deebo is worried about, if he is at all, and these whispers that people are saying about, is that it's just going to go to other people.
And my interpretation of what Steve Young was saying was, I tip my cap to Steve Young being media trained and being a savant, because he alluded to whispers, but you can't pin down exactly what he's saying. Is it a whisper that he was unhappy with Trey Lance and wanted Jimmy? Is it whispers about his potential usage moving forward? That's the beauty of what Steve Young said, is now we kind of got to spin our wheels a little bit. I feel like there is a range of outcome where it did maybe feel like he was talking about Trey Lance. He maybe was said a little too much in regard to which quarterback versus which quarterback it should be. And by all accounts, Deebo became one of the most prolific wide receivers under Jimmy Garoppolo, and for good reason, because they needed Deebo to be able to get the ball into short intermediate areas, do his work, or do it behind the line of scrimmage. He even had him throw a couple passes throughout last year.
Yeah, I mean, they needed to make sure they had a guy who could throw the ball a little bit further down the field. Sorry. No, what I wanted to say is this. If you look at the two games that he actually played with Deebo Samuel, and the 2.5 quarters, what did Deebo Samuel have, like 3 touchdowns, 2 long touchdowns?
True.
I think you'll be all right, Deebo. You'll be fine.
So, again, the whispers, it seems like they're there. Like we talked about at the beginning, I trust Steve Young. So the fact that there are whispers, I'm not going to completely discredit it. Also, too, on top of that, I have no idea exactly what he was speaking to, because he kind of left it up for interpretation, in the sense of, well, he could have been whispering about Trey. He could have been whispering about this, that, or the other thing. So I did find it interesting, though, because we did we listened to the whole interview on live, and we literally stopped it and cut it, and we talked about that segment for about 5 minutes, because we just really, it's like he's saying something about Trey Lance and Deebo's reference to Trey Lance, but we don't know exactly what he was saying. He just kind of left it open-ended. So it was interesting. But yes, we did hear that. Jason, we did hear rumors through the media that Deebo doesn't want to play with Trey Lance. So again, just take it with a grain of salt. Steve Young is obviously onto something, and he's not going to air out the 49ers' dirty laundry to begin with. He might reference something, but he's not going to full-blown say this is what happened or this is what it is. So it's obviously going to be a situation, and we don't even know. Last we heard, Deebo still wanted to get traded out. Did he follow the San Francisco 49ers again? Of course he did. And just like clockwork, everyone stopped talking about it, and we're back to the quarterback conversation. So we'll see what the Deebo, just quickly on the Deebo situation. Does Deebo show up to OTAs? Does he show up to mandatory minicamp? Keyword being mandatory. And if he doesn't, which some players don't, like, and that's not a huge red flag. I mean, it does happen. Um, are you, does he show up to training camp?
I don't think he shows up to OTAs or mandatory minicamp, and I don't think that would scare me at all. I really don't, and I think that it still gets done, and he'll be there at training camp. One way, look, the one thing I want to implore people to do is just because Fred Warner went to minicamp and didn't complain at all and went through all the drills like a good team captain and everything, that doesn't necessarily mean anything about Deebo Samuel if he doesn't want to do the same. Fred is just taught different, right? Like, and he's just built different. Like, that's just the way his mind works. At the same time, if Deebo doesn't show up, I'm not going to freak out. They're going to get it done. And he's just doing what he thinks is best. So comparing the situations, like, well, Fred didn't have a contract. He went to minicamp. Yeah, that just speaks to the character of Fred. But it doesn't say anything about Deebo Samuel or anything like that, in my opinion. It's just the way that he's choosing to do this. And I hate to talk about this, but Tariq Cohen yesterday, while he was trying to work his way back, right, popped his Achilles. You could literally hear it on the video. That is why guys want to get paid immediately. He was literally working out, doing a drill, and that type of thing can happen. So I am not going to look any way about this. If Fred wants to go ahead and do business that way, good on Fred. That is very commendable. But I am not going to blame Deebo Samuel because you know how quickly things can go left and how one injury can derail everything before you get your payday. So that's where I stand on that. He's going to get signed before training camp. He doesn't show up to OTA. He doesn't show up to mini camp. And I will not bat an eye about it. I promise you.
Yeah, I agree. If I was in his camp, I'd say you don't step on the field until you sign that on the dotted line, because just like you pointed to, an injury can occur at any moment. It just happens that way. So you have to be very careful about it. And we understand if he were to get injured, that significantly reduces the chance of him getting that deal that he wanted, because that becomes a huge liability. Look at Jimmy. No one's trading for Jimmy for a surgery that everyone thinks he's going to bounce back from, but still, it's enough to cause enough stoppage for them not to even discuss it. Jerome says, I said it before, Trey has elite intelligence, elite athleticism, and elite drive to improve. His drive is the intangible. He works at his craft like he has no talent. That will grow into a tree of top 10 quarterback. Book it. What do you think?
Jerome, watch that, man. I mean, all I've been from what people have been telling me, it's hard for him to take in the playbook. And again, everything that people are saying about Trey goes against, like, if you're gonna criticize Trey, stick to the knocks. Stick to the knocks. Don't go against the things that we know about him. Remember, pre-snap, he used to diagnose things in college. That's one of the things that Kyle liked right away off the bat. But now he can't digest the playbook. Well, which is it, bro? Did he all of a sudden just, forget the playbook or not be able to pick it up because of the
remember how quickly Trey picked up the playbook from OTAs to training camp. Remember, we're blown away by how quickly Trey acclimated to the playbook.
The more and more you hear what people are saying, the more and more it sounds like making things up, or it sounds like someone smearing him mid-Scangarello. Now, here's the problem. If you want to knock him for hasn't played a bunch, cool. If you want to knock him for short accuracy, cool. We saw that in training camp. Don't start knocking him about the things that we know are true about him, or the things that the coaching staff identified that all of a sudden, well, he was really smart in college. He really picked up the playbook last training camp, but man, he doesn't have it this year. What, did he knock his head and have amnesia? Like, when you start to listen to the more and more what people are saying, the more and more it goes against the things that we know are true about Trey Lance. Right. His arm strength. Now his arm strength is a question. Jesus, man, what are we even doing here at this point? Who is saying these things? What are they saying? And when you start to break them down little by little, you start to realize that none of this is credible at all. None of it.
And it's like also too, like, and the reason why I even hold Steve Young into even higher regard, because he did go to talk about some of the concerns, and like you mentioned, some of the accuracy. Well, when you look at why the accuracy would be an issue, it's because they are retooling his throwing mechanics from the top down. They're trying to close the throwing motion. They're also trying to get that bounce hitch out of his step. We've seen it. We saw what Trey Lance looked like going into OTAs last year, and we saw what he looked like out at like the first workout out of it. His mechanics were noticeably different. And I can rationally put my head in a spot to understand, to relearn how to throw. It's going to take time. It's going to take tons of repetition, and it's going to take actually doing it in real time. I think you can go back to the Arizona game. I had broken it down in a bunch of different points where you see his old technique and his new technique and where he was struggling. Again, you saw Trey Lance come out in that first drive against Arizona, hitting dots, moving the ball downfield. He does that little scramble up move, drops the elbow, throws it, and it creates a little bit more upward velocity. They sail it over who?
Travis Benjamin?
Travis Benjamin. Who is the king of wide receiver fours, right? Like he's the head of the fan club for wide receivers.
And by the way, if I could go off on a mini tangent.
Go.
I want Julio
I was hoping
Jones.
you were.
I want Julio Jones. You watch Travis Benjamin take reps. You watch Mo Sanu get hyped for an entire offseason. You watch River Craycraft take play stats, but this is where the Bucs stop. Absolutely not Julio Jones. No way. Right. Y'all gotta start really thinking about this, man. Even in his diminished state, all three of those guys, if they formed into one guy, ain't this diminished Julio. Sorry. Couldn't pass up a chance to let that go. Go for it.
Hey man, if that was Julio Jones getting targeted on that particular pass, he
catches
comes
that.
down with that. Absolutely. They're throwing it to Travis Benjamin. All right. Like give the kid a break a little bit. He's out here. Like, no George Kittle. Throwing to Travis Benjamin, like, what are we talking about? Like,
y'all are cool with Travis Benjamin running routes, but Julio Jones at 33. Nah, man, we can't do it, man. What are you talking about? What are y'all talking about?
Oh boy.
Sorry.
Good times, Jason. Good times.
Yeah,
shout out to homie James. He says the best damn show on YouTube. The Brad and Jason show. Speak the truth, my dudes. Appreciate you, my guy. Really do. I do want to get to a super chat. That was one of the first ones we got to, and I apologize, Gammon, but I did want to get it in and make sure we talk about it. And we kind of talked about some of the injuries with the Tariq Cohen situation. But Gammon says, with injuries happening around the league lately and the depth of talent pool on the 49ers, again, look at their defensive line room, the offensive line room. Even though there's questions, there's going to be some guys that are cut. Possible trades that you could potentially see materializing maybe into camp again. Jonas Griffith got traded last year for a conditional 7th, turned into a 6th because he ended up starting a ton of games for the Denver Broncos. Is there going to be a guy like that or potential multiple guys that could, just lack of space gets themselves traded to another spot?
Defensive line. I believe they have something like 12 defensive linemen at this point. I mean, like, they're not all going to make this team. And when I was asked, who's going to be on the outside looking in of the rookies, when I mentioned the players that I mentioned, it wasn't because I didn't think they were good players. It's because it's only 53 spots, and there's only so many spots that you can have on the practice squad. There are going to be some very good football players on this 49ers team that are going to be on the outside looking in. So at a certain point, when you realize, hey, man, this is a good player, but we can't do anything with him because we have to have a numbers crunch, there's going to be defensive linemen that you're going to be able to move, which are very valuable, especially when you consider the value that they have raised being under the 49ers, meaning Chris Kasarik has gotten so many guys paid. Look at Arden Key. Like, Arden Key just got a bag because he was here, right? Like, Kerry Hyder got signed because he was here, and now he's back. That's the type of thing. I think it's defensive line. As far as linebacker, I don't think, and I'm going to get off the Dre Greenlaw thing. I think that you really can't move him at this point. I think there's nothing wrong with having Dre, Aziz, and Fred, Demetrius Flanagan Foles, and Marcel Harris isn't here anymore. I think he just left for the Jets. So I don't think you can move any of those guys now at this point. And as far as safety goes, realistically, at the other safety spot, I refuse to call it strong safety because they just flip back and forth. Right. Hufanga, Odom, and Tarvarius Moore, one of those guys, and I fear that it actually might be Tarvarius Moore. It might be the guy that ends up getting cut because I think Hufanga's a lock. I think Odom's a lock. But Moore is the guy that really has a lot to – he's kind of up against it this training camp. He's really got to show something. So it's not going to be anywhere like linebacker, which is something I would have said last year, like, hey, you can move Dre Greenlaw and get a third or fourth. Now you've got to keep him, I think, at this point with the way that the roster is moving. But it might be one of those safeties up there if unfortunately you get down to that numbers crunch and somebody wants to take Tarvaris Moore for a sixth, because Jonas Griffith went for a sixth as well, or one of those defensive linemen, and maybe you get a little something more for them, because I don't really feel that you can move away from the cornerback depth, which is the best it's been, and you definitely can't move away from this offensive line, especially since we don't know who the center is and we really don't know the pecking order of everybody right now at this point.
Absolutely. So I would imagine someone gets potentially traded. There's enough good talent on this roster that there are going to be injuries that occur, and someone's going to need someone for a cheap conditional late round pick. The San Francisco 49ers will probably be willing to make those types of moves because they have so much depth at particular positions. So it could absolutely happen. Jesse Wade says to piggyback off the injury scare, that's why Jimmy Garoppolo won't step on the field before being traded or released. As a Niner fan, that would piss me off. Guarantee his contract because he got hurt. What is your overall thought process now with the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, as it's kind of, we're getting closer to that period? Now, we don't think Jimmy Garoppolo will suit up at all, show his face even in the building for OTAs, and I would assume mandatory minicamp.
He's rehabbing.
But does he get on the field? Do we see Jimmy Garoppolo in training camp actually throwing passes?
Maybe. But I think the 49ers right now are slow playing this thing because, one, they are kind of waiting to see what other teams think of what they have. And you don't start to realize what you have until pads start popping and you start to see guys throw the football. And maybe, the Carolina Panthers sit there and they're like, man, Sam Darnold's not it. And maybe there's a world where the Cleveland Browns know that Deshaun Watson is going to be toast especially after something that came out yesterday, which was pretty
What came out yesterday?
About the therapist who cried after the massage, and he had to send her an apology text. Why would the massage therapist be crying? He admitted that under oath. So yeah, is Deshaun Watson cooked? Do they say, you know what, man, we like you, Jacoby Brissett, but let's try to repair this with Baker Mayfield and start him, right?
What if the Browns gave him that just monumental contract and he gets clapped for an entire year? Like, what?
Maybe. Have you seen his dead cap numbers?
No.
His dead cap numbers after this year, $230 million against the cap. They cannot move him. And I'm not even joking. Go look it up on OTC. It's like 239 1 year, 255 another year, like not 2 million, $235 million against dead cap. That's your whole cap. He's not going anywhere.
They're tied to that shit.
So maybe there's a quarterback that either underwhelms or, God forbid, and I never want to pray for this at all, it gets injured and a fringe playoff team. Like, let's say Jameis Winston, hurts himself. And the Saints are a fringe playoff team right now. They are. Yeah. Andy Dalton's there. I get it. But you still need somebody else. And look, man, we talk a lot of crap about Jimmy Garoppolo. I am taking Jimmy Garoppolo 10 days in a row over Andy Dalton. Sorry. And I think that the only reason anybody would say that they would take Andy Dalton over Jimmy Garoppolo is because he's much cheaper. And that's fair. But if we're talking about the player, Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Andy Dalton. I think we can all agree on that. So there has to be a team that is going to be a fringe playoff team that they feel can, because Jimmy can lead you to, keep your ship steady and lead you to wins. What you won't see is a team that has no playoff aspirations that's going to win like 4 games, trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. You know why? Because going from 4 wins to 6 wins maybe isn't going to change anything for you. Like, if you trade for Jimmy Garoppolo and you're the Houston Texans and you're a 4-win team right now as constructed, that doesn't make you a playoff team. Sorry, he ain't that good. So that's the thing. I think they're slow playing it to see what they can get when the trade market opens back up with his shoulder, because the Panthers have said they're not completely out on a quarterback. Who knows what's going on with Deshaun Watson? So that's why the Browns are slow playing what's going on with Baker Mayfield, because maybe they can come and just get on the doorstep like, please, like, if he's gone for the whole year, can you just stay this year and you can reset your market, play well, and you can go on next year? Or do they just do the thing at the end? And if push comes to shove, this is what I think happens. If push comes to shove, none of that materializes. They have until literally days before week 1, before his money becomes guaranteed. You just cut him. And then you know what, Jimmy Garoppolo, you played yourself because 1, you don't have anywhere to go where you can learn the playbook right away. And 2, who would you be going to where you would immediately start? And you're just really in a bind at that point. Both have played the situation to where it's at, and both sides are to blame for the situation at hand right now.
I would see it like Jimmy's probably going back to Carolina to back up Mac Jones if he had a choice.
Oh, you mean New England? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Poor Sappy.
Yeah, but why Big Jordan is our resident Carolina Panthers fan, and he doesn't want Jimmy over there. But I'm sorry to tell him that they might be a potential landing. Jimmy might be a potential landing spot for Jimmy Garoppolo if they get into camp and Sam Darnold is doing Sam Darnold things and Matt Corral is nowhere near ready because they do want to compete. So it would be very interesting to see if Jimmy does finally end up over there with the Panthers, but we'll see. It remains to be seen what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo. But Jerome brings up this point. Did anyone else notice Jimmy Garoppolo hadn't reached out to the 49ers draft picks? Jimmy is checked out. Seems like it's only a matter of time before he's gone.
Had a farewell press conference. He's gone. He don't want to be here. He gone. And that's why
who came out today and said that they think Jimmy's going to start for the 49ers this year?
Doesn't matter.
Someone.
It's a talking idiot probably at this point.
It's like a bobblehead.
All right, you know what? I gotta chill. Here, look. There's a lot of people. I think I'm more frustrated about this. There's a lot of people that before this season I had a lot of respect for their contributions, and they were people that I looked up to very much so in terms of what they've contributed to media, who they are, their analysis, that now are saying things that now you deep down don't even believe. Because now it's become what you guys yell at us for, clickbaiting, being, overreacting, is what they're doing, and they have the same exact job as us to draw clicks. And that is where we're at this point. But yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo, that's why it was so funny. People, when Brock Purdy talked about, Trey reached out, Nate Sudfeld reached out, I haven't heard from Jimmy, and everyone was like, oh, you see, Jimmy's not a part of this team anymore. I don't expect him to reach out. I was not moved by that. Didn't change my thought process on him at all. He did the right thing last year.
Why would a quarterback who's not going to be on the roster reach out to new guys on the roster? That's just weird.
It's like Alex Mack calling Donovan West right now, like, hey, bro, can't wait to see you in the building. Are you going to be there? Well, maybe.
We thought we saw him. We thought we saw
Brad.
No, Daddy
Brad.
B. Oh, I got. Hey.
No. I mean, honestly, because I have so much respect for you and faith in you, and I love you so much. I was like, well, if Brad found it, I was like, it's up. It's all the way up. Like, I was literally sitting having lunch, and I was like, oh, it's up. I was like, let's go. And then, but you know what? You stood in the box and you said, hey, I apologize. It's the right thing to do. You didn't, you as class act as usual, Brad. And I will not tolerate any Brad slander. Do not bring that around my Twitter because I will not take to that kindly.
I was looking at that picture. I was like, dang, Brunskill got thick in other news because I was like, oh, that looks like Mac. But hey, man, those guys look almost identical.
They kind of look alike.
Dude, it was kind of crazy. But anyways, the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, it just feels like he's not going to be on the roster. So now, not only is it we've been transitioning towards Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a backup and be on the active roster. Now it's transitioning towards, they still don't trust Trey Lance, and Trey Lance still isn't ready. So it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo to be on the roster. If Jimmy Garoppolo's on this roster, Jason, it feels like all hell will officially break loose.
Yes.
Week 1. Not fan base, locker room. I feel like Kyle Shanahan's head will explode by like week 3. It feels like a recipe for disaster.
I fear for the locker room dynamic for a lot of those veterans, not the core. The core is young, and the core has been drafted. I'm talking about the hired guns that are here, the veterans, right?
Yeah.
How can you look them in the eye and still have this guy that they had, whatever success they had last year, and say, hey, man, you're just a backup now at this point? That's not a recipe for success. We kind of saw after Trey Lance scored the first touchdown of the season that Kyle just completely went away from that. He went back to it in the home opener, and that was like the last time you saw that, because privately people didn't like that. And if you go and you look back at that press conference, you can pull up the transcript, and it's for everybody to read on 49ers.com. Jimmy Garoppolo was asked, and he was like, yeah, I want to be in there, but it is what it is. Glad we scored. He wasn't happy, right? That's the human element of this, which is why you need to do this and get rid of this whole situation. Because when you do, everyone knows, stop talking about him. Don't worry about what he's doing. He's doing whatever he's doing. He's not here anymore. Focus on the kid in front of you. But if you leave him lingering around, it creates that tension. And that's the part that I fear for more than anything. Will those guys be professionals and rise up above it? I'm going to bet on that.
Right.
But I do think that it would be weird. I do think that it would be weird for many of them, especially the guys that love Jimmy so much because he's a great leader. That's all they ever say. Great leader, great leader, great leader. That's it. Like, that's all they keep throwing at. But yeah, that would be weird for them. It would. And I don't blame them necessarily. I don't.
Right. Because we talk about it all the time. Like, although we might want a little bit more from Jimmy Garoppolo from an on-field presence and a standpoint of execution, we can't argue that he's probably an elite person. Like, it just feels like he obviously can command a group full of just ultra veterans, and they can look up to him and respect him. And that's even without the best absolute play on the field. It more speaks to who he is as a person and a leader. And we understand this is a game played by humans, so there is that element. But overall, what we look at and what we evaluate is what we can see in between the white lines. So obviously, we understand why Kyle Shanahan made this move to go give up those draft picks at all in any of this just back and forth conversation. Could this be a little bit of protection or cushioning for the front office? Maybe Kyle and John to just be like, kind of setting the tone that pump the brakes on Trey Lance. Now, I think it's kind of working in the opposite, because I think fans are just like now getting angry at this narrative to the point where, see, he is good. I mean, I even fell trap to it today. I think a lot of us did. We were all posting on Twitter today about like, man, like if you guys are this adamant about Trey when he's not ready, like, well, what is Trey going to be when he is ready? Or what's the energy going to be like when he is ready to go? Do you feel like there is a sense that maybe there is a little bit of just cushioning, or trying to like insulate Trey in a sense, or maybe insulate the 49ers from a potential rocky first year starting with Trey?
That, and also we just talked about freak injuries. God forbid something happens to the kid. Now you don't have to worry about Brock Purdy or Nate Sudfeld. And you slow played this thing with him as your security blanket. But I think that security blanket goes right away out the window before week one, because that is a lot for a backup quarterback. And they are, to a degree, slow playing this because they're going through all the range of outcomes, hoping someone else gets hurt or doesn't play well so they can move him, hoping that Trey Lance is ready and doesn't get injured, because if not, then they can go right back to Jimmy. And you know what? They can win games with Jimmy. So it is a lot of these things. The 49ers right now, for lack of a better term, are a little bit scared to immediately do this for that reason, right? Like, maybe there are some bumps and bruises that they are not willing to live with, which is sad. It really is, because you need to really just cleanse your palate of like what you expect and kind of just wait to see what goes on and how the kid bounces back before you make any drastic moves. But yeah, I do think that there is some truth to that part of it for sure.
So it's going to be fascinating, because guess what? We are going to be forced to talk about it again and ongoing until, maybe someone else unfollows the 49ers or whatever. It just feels like we're going to be
breaking news
around.
Brad Graham just unfollowed the 49ers, guys. Lose your mind. Breaking news. Brad Graham is seeking a trade to cover another team. More at 5.
more at 5:00. Cove Nation says, I believe Tua isn't the answer in Miami, and Mike McDaniels knows this. there have probably been some texts between him and Kyle. And I'll just quickly speak to this. Just go look at Teddy Bridgewater's
I was about to
contract and the
say.
way it was set up. Like,
I was gonna
I
say.
think you're right, but I think there's also a reason why they went after Teddy Bridgewater.
Right. And here's the thing, too, is Jimmy is better than every backup, but that doesn't mean that he's cost efficient, right?
Right.
What's
That's
the
his
what's
biggest problem almost,
right?
right? Is that he
And
carries a $25 million tag.
and I would pose this question because I think it's a little bit tougher than you guys think. What's the gap between Jimmy and Teddy? Is it this big? Is it this big? Is it this big? So if I'm them, you already got your backup. Teddy steady. That didn't mean to rhyme that. But
Nice.
at that cost,
Okay.
again, just because a guy may be better than other guys doesn't mean that that team has him, right? So, like, for instance,
Right.
you could look at the Giants and say, well, Jimmy's better than Daniel Jones. Yeah, but you got to figure out what Daniel Jones is. Moving to Jimmy Garoppolo and Jimmy Garoppolo being better than Daniel Jones, which we all know he is, doesn't mean that he should start for them. And that's really when we say that there's no spots, is there's players that he's better than, but they have a plan in place. And you can't disrupt that because Jimmy Garoppolo does not move that needle away from that plan. You know who you disrupt plans for? Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, elite guys, not mid-tier guys. Not Kirk Cousins, not Derek Carr, not Ryan Tannehill. Like, those aren't the guys that you deviate from your plan. And that's the problem more than anything. Jimmy Garoppolo is absolutely better than 10, 12 starting guys. Is he better than Drew Lock? Sure.
Yeah.
Seattle doesn't want to move forward, though, with that. And you know what? Drew Lock's got a better arm than Jimmy. So why not give the kid a shot? You know what Jimmy is. I'd rather see what Drew Lock
Jimmy's
has.
expensive.
Right. And sure, we'll stink this year. Sure, the Seattle Seahawks will stink this year. But they'll have a high draft pick. Oh, wait, no, they won't. Sorry, I had to throw it in there. But they will have their plan in place, and that's it. You can't deviate from the plan. You don't blow up that plan unless it's one of those top-tier guys. And unfortunately, I think we all know Jimmy Garoppolo is not that.
All right. This is going to be a moving target, I guess, if you will. So we're not going to hold your feet to the fire. But considering it's May 18th, there's plenty of time ahead where a lot of things are going to change. What would you say is going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo right now, today? And again, we're not going to hold your feet to the fire and pull this receipt. Oh, look what Jason said about Jimmy. No, we're not going to do that. We know this is a moving target. We know information is going to change, and this is going to be an ongoing situation. But if you had to say today, what is going to be the outcome of Jimmy Garoppolo with the 49ers, what would you say?
Jimmy eventually gets cut. And I think that's really what he wants at this point, because then he's going to be able to pick and choose where he wants to go. And fine, you get cut after you get healthy and the 49ers get that $7 million back. That's a beautiful thing, and I think that works out best for both. And I think that the 49ers are not saying anything bad about Jimmy Garoppolo because they don't want to bother Jimmy Garoppolo or anger him, because I think they do have a great deal of respect for him as well too. So there is that human element of it as well. That's why you don't hear them come out and say, yeah, man, we're just trying to get this guy out of here as soon as he's healthy. It's never going to come out of their mouths because they have a ton of respect for him with good reason. Again, we're not in that building, and Jimmy does seem like a very likable guy. That's why they don't do anything to poke the bear or to take shots at him while he's rehabbing. But push comes to shove, he eventually gets cut. He's not on this roster. You're going to go into the season with Trey Lance, Nate Sudfeld, and Brock Purdy as your practice squad guy.
I would agree with that. And you could even reference last year, maybe after the Titans game or that week, where Coach was talking about the injuries that Jimmy Garoppolo sustained almost less than 2 minutes after he was done speaking. Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport dropped reports of the actual injury that Jimmy Garoppolo sustained. So I believe there's a little bit of that kind of aspect to it. Again, there's been a lot of talk, and it feels like it's heating up even more, that, maybe that surgery was a little bit ill-advised and ill-timed. And if you want to connect those dots, you can point to situations throughout the year where someone was leaking Jimmy Garoppolo's injury information, and it probably wasn't the 49ers. So if you kind of follow that particular path, maybe there is a situation where they ultimately just get to where he can pass a physical and say, Jimmy, We appreciate your time. We got our 7.5 back. We're not going to get anything. I don't. Maybe they trade him for a conditional pick at that point, but
See, but
we're going to
all
find
right,
out.
Brad, you and I we love this draft shit, right?
Yeah.
The even in the first round, the likelihood that you get a stud in the first round out of the 32 picks is less than 50%, especially
Right.
year to year. And there's certain years it's even less. Every round that you go down, that goes down.
Yeah. The
The
bust rate.
minimum that the minimum that the 49ers should be getting for him is a third. After that, I don't care. I don't want a fourth. I don't want a fifth. I don't want a sixth. I don't want a seventh. You know
You
why?
just want to
Give me the money. Give me the money.
true.
You know why? The 49ers have been great finding guys, right? In the third, fourth, fifth round. It used to be the joke that the 49ers should start their draft in the fifth round. But the likelihood of finding impact players in those rounds doesn't even make sense for you to sit around and say, well, we'll at least get the pick and everything, because you're going to wind up having to send the pick and pick up some of that bill, because nobody is going to say, sure, we'll trade for Jimmy Garoppolo and $25 million. No. That's not going to happen. What you do is you rip the Band-Aid off and you keep the money. I get it. The 49ers have been good. Third, fourth, fifth round, finding guys is always, third round, Fred Warner, fourth round, in fifth round, George Kittle. I get it. Those are exceptions, not the rule. So I don't want a sixth or a seventh. Those guys don't hit and sometimes don't make the team. Juwan Jennings was a sixth rounder and he just started playing this year. That was 2 years ago. So again, I don't need to pick. I don't need to pick up the bill and move him somewhere else. Give me the full 25. And you know what you do with that $25 million? You either take that money and you roll it over next year to an increased cap, or you do something that the 49ers haven't done. Is you notice that you're a playoff team and you can make a run, you make an in-season trade for somebody who can be impactful. A pass rusher who's expiring, a deal's expiring. Maybe a safety who has another expiring deal. That's something that the 49ers haven't been able to do because they've been hamstrung by the cap. You take the money. I don't want to pick at this point. If it's a third, you take it because that's the highest pick you're probably going to get for him, and you can still find great players there. But after that, keep your fourth, keep your fifth, keep your sixth, keep your seventh. Give me the money, man. Give me the money.
Give Jason his stacks so we can move on, potentially sign. And I think you mentioned a great point. You could sign a player. Get ready for camp too, especially if Jimmy is able to pass a physical late June, right? Is that kind of the target we've heard? Late June should be able to throw again. So that still gives the 49ers a solid month of being able to bring in a Julio Jones, bring in a JC Treader, bring in some of those veterans.
Make a move at the trade deadline. Emmanuel Sanders came for a relative clause, like the trade deadline thing. Like the Rams traded for Von Miller. It helped them win a Super Bowl. Now that's what I'm talking about, dude. It's like, now that's not your business model, but $25 million sitting around, you can really, really, really help the kid out. If the offensive line is struggling a little bit, you trade for an offensive lineman who doesn't have a deal into the next year. Use that money. It comes off your books the next year, and you're also competing. There's so many ways that money can help. If you want to roll it over, fine. You feel good with this roster, fine. But it gives you the flexibility to do things to push this team to win games and help the kid out. That's it more than anything. Give me the money, man. Forget the pick. Forget the pick. That's gone. That pick thing is gone now at this point. Don't want a fourth. Don't want a fifth, sixth, or seventh. Give me the money, man. Come on. Stop playing around.
Don't play with Jason's money. Get this man some additional assets so the San Francisco 49ers can build around Trey Lance and hopefully push for a playoff spot. Remains to be seen. We'll find out. But Jason, as always, phenomenal conversation. State of the franchise was on point today. Tell the good people where to find more of your content.
Appreciate you, bro. I actually fell asleep like a few minutes before this, and I had to like run and get a Red Bull. So maybe if I'm speaking fast and I got a little hyper, it's because that Red Bull kicked in like maybe 2 minutes into the show and just like sent me all the way up. But no, always good. Yeah, always good to do this with you on Wednesdays, man. One of my favorite shows on the channel completely, man. And thank you, man. So yeah, right here, Jason Aponte. See, one shot. Jason Aponte 2103 on Twitter. Jason Aponte on YouTube as well. If you are subscribed to both of our, make sure you subscribe to both of our channels. This is live stream on both. Like this video, hit that notification bell, subscribe to the channel, join the Spicy Squad so you can call in and we can talk about whatever it is that you want. Schedule's going to be a little bit thrown off. I am moving. So it's going to be hard. That's why you see the new little setup. I'm in a different place because, and it may be a little bit more echoey because things are already being moved out. So the streaming is going to take a little bit of a backseat. But Brad, we're getting really close to training camp, and I'm going to be able to see you again. And I cannot wait to actually talk about actual football and things like that as well, since we're not going to be allowed to. We're not going to be allowed to be in OTAs or mini camp or anything like that. But training camp, man, is going to be a blast, man, and I can't wait. I'm counting down the days.
Absolutely. We got one more super chat in here on our way out. I'm a Niner unfaithful for sure. With that
Oh
being
no.
said, we have three head coaches in the building, and that's something to talk about. Kyle's getting schooled, I bet. Thoughts?
No, I think that, the 49ers in 2 straight years have promoted head coaches. Next year, it'll for sure be D'Amico Ryans. Hello, Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator. Love it. And I think Anthony Lynn is here because the wrinkles that they want to add to this offense go with him a little bit more. That's why the Ty Davis Price pick makes sense. Maybe a little bit of Trey Sermon action. Maybe Aaron Banks and those guys. The inside running is going to be the wrinkle that he's very good with because of his time with Buffalo. You notice that's how they really ran the ball well with Shady McCoy and with also a mobile quarterback in Tyrod Taylor. So, no, I just think that the 49ers have done a great job of promoting from within. Robert Saleh got a job. Mike McDaniel got a job. It's going to be 3 straight years that they get a head coach out of their coaching staff. D'Amico Ryan is for sure gone next year because he was almost gone this year. The 49ers are great at building coaches, and this is an environment that many coaches want to be a part of. Also, if Anthony Lynn is here for 2 years and then takes another head coaching job, hello comp pick. So the 49ers are very good at bringing in guys that are going to be desirable, guys that they can develop. And I think that is an aspect that a lot of people overlook when it comes to this coaching staff and how good that they are at promoting and developing from within their own family tree.
Yeah, and I don't look at it as Kyle's getting schooled because he brought on former head coaches. I look at it as a collective. I mean, he does have a literal coaching, like off-season development called the QB Collective. I think it really is a collective of coaches. They attack it that way, and they lean on each other where they're weak and where they're strong, and they build that way. And I think that's one of the awesome things about Kyle. I don't think Kyle's a perfect coach. Like I love Kyle. I think, he is phenomenal play caller, all those types of things. But, just from an outside perspective looking in, I think there's probably some areas where he could get a little bit better at. But I also recognize that he hires a certain type of staff around him that I feel they just help each other in each individual category. So I don't think it's a getting schooled. I think it really is a collective where he brings the best possible people in and they rely on each other. And guess what? They work as a team and they are able to get it done. So I don't look at it from that standpoint.
And if I could correlate that to, this podcasting thing, you know the saying, if you're the smartest in the room, get in another room. I think that applies to everything, right? And for me, I'm trying to break into the media business. And this is not a flex or anything like that, but like I have made friends in the media business who have done things much more than I have. Now, are we getting closer to being colleagues? For sure. But do I respect them enough to pick their brain, ask questions, bounce ideas off them, listen? The person that stops trying to learn is the biggest fool in any aspect in life. And again, if you're the smartest in the room, find another room. And I think Kyle Shanahan, he may not be using them as the end all, like Anthony Lynn, what do I do here? And if he says whatever, he's going with it.
Like, what do I do?
But what do I do, Anthony? You've been a coach for longer than I have. I think it's more about being able to bounce off ideas off of smart people who have been in this league and that nobody knows everything. And he's trying to get to the right answer. So I dispel that narrative, respectfully, of course.
Respectfully. But good thought. It was a good talking point. Definitely good perspective. But anyways, that's it for Jason and I. We will be back most likely next Wednesday. We'll see how it goes because we do get some football action on the 23rd, right? That's the official start to OTAs.
And
So
we'll be able to dissect social media videos, and make sweeping statements about players on 30-second videos as well. Guys,
I got so hyped. I got so hyped off Taysir Mack get off, just one little get off against air in a warm up. I was like, "Woo, let's go!" honestly
You'll be
means
proud of me.
nothing, but it got me excited.
I've grown a lot. Here's why. Rookie minicamp, everybody's asking who are you most excited about, and you have to give an answer, which is a running back, wide receiver, or secondary, because they don't have enough people to do 11 on 11, and they're not going to be in pass. You know what I want to see? Offensive lineman. I want to see Burford. I want to see Poe. I want to see Donovan West. Those are the guys I want to see because I think I have a good idea of what those other guys are, and we really won't know until the bullets start flying. But line, you can really judge on those one-on-ones and everything as well, too. So you'd be proud of me, Brad. I have gone from a guy. So basically, the wide receiver is the flashy food, right?
You've been the fantasy guy, the quarterback,
right.
wide receiver, running back,
Right.
flex, tight end,
right.
defense.
Like
maybe.
all of that is the fast food, right? Is the McDonald's. It tastes good in the moment, everything, right? It's cool. But the
instant gratification.
Yeah, like the slow burn is the filet mignon, which is the offensive line play and so much technique and everything, and that's what I'm actually looking forward to. You would be proud of me.
I love it. I'm very excited to hear. I'm glad to see Jason coming on over to the big boy side, more figuratively than literally. But but as we continue, I'm right there with you, man, dude. I'm so excited for these offensive linemen. I think it's going to be a blast. I did find it interesting. Matt Mayoko referenced Jalen Moore as a guard on his most recent podcast. Something that I've been adamant about, I don't want to see, but he referenced him specifically as a guard and talked about them drafting tackles that will be guards. Is there a trend developing here, Jason? Is there like this galaxy brain evaluation archetype where they're taking your kind of, I don't want to call them limited because they're not, but just semi above grade offensive tackles and kicking them inside to the guard? It seems like we're on to something here.
I think two things can be true. One is that Kyle loves versatility across the line and basically everywhere, positionless football, right? But the big knock on the interior linemen are that they were small. Yeah. And you get those bigger guys to kick inside now and you teach them a little bit more, then you beef up that line. And I think that was the crux of why the 49ers lost in the Super Bowl in 2019. Sorry, guys, the interior offensive line, while they played very well. Right, they got beat. And it happens when you have smaller guys. When you have those athletic guys, the whole point is to be able to have them kick out in the outside zone and be able to pull and everything. But when you're in straight up pass pro, those smaller guys can be exploited. So maybe there's a philosophical change here to them going to bigger guards to try to, one, they are athletic enough to do what they need them to do, but to be able to pass pro and be able to be like an obvious passing downs that wall for the kid. And I think that's where they're kind of getting at.
Yeah, I like it. Again, you're able to get more athleticism on the interior. Traditional guards, shorter arms, they're more bigger bellies, you know, more your Quinn Miners type of offensive linemen. They're changing the archetype, which I like because again, it's putting an emphasis on athletic traits and kicking that across the interior. And that's music to my ears, especially with outside zone schemes where you got to be able to get out in space. You got to get to the second level and you got to do all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm very excited that you are in on the offensive line. We are going to see what's going to happen, though, coming up in OTAs starting Monday. So we will have some fresh social media 15 to 20-second clips to evaluate to the nth degree. Hopefully we don't see any wobblers out there because we saw what happened to Tua, and that was a pure setup for failure.
I just don't understand what the social media team was thinking. I mean, like with that one, I mean, I wouldn't have posted that one. I'd have been like, hey, can y'all do that again?
You just got to get that social guy who knows enough about football to be able to understand, like, if a wide receiver's turning back to the ball, that means it's an underthrow. So even though it looks nice with the tight camera shot and you see the ball, but when you see it turn into a punt, then it's like, and then of course Tyreek posts the other ones that don't look like punts, and he's like,
Tyreek had to do that though. Tyreek
He
did
had
that.
to.
That's his quarterback. Good job. I like that. But yeah, that was.
Absolutely.
I think we all thought the same thing. We were like, damn, like that. Like he was waiting for that
Just
to come
getting
down. Like,
roasted, bro. Just getting
please.
roasted. So hopefully we don't see any of those. But other
Right.
than that, that's what we'll be probably reacting to next week. But hey, it's 49ers football. Helmets are on. They're on the green cut grass. It's better than just spinning our wheels with this quarterback situation, which we will continue to do, by the way, most
Right.
likely. And not by choice, though, just because.
No.
That's all I got to talk about. But again, thank you guys, everyone. Shout out the Spicy Squad. Shout out the Sourdough Squad. We appreciate both of you guys. If you haven't already, smash the like button on both channels. Hit the sub to both channels. We'll see you guys next week. And until then, be good. We're out of here.